£5,000 on a mid-2000s Renaultsport Clio. Do you go old school 182 or more modern 197? Two fabulous and fantastic hot hatches, both 2-litre normally aspirated engines, both cutbacks. Let's find out which is the king of the Renaultsport Clio of the mid-2000s. It's Rich here with another fast and fun video.
When you come to compare these two cars, the first thing you see is the size. The size difference, how the 197's just grown. It's just grown hugely in width, height, length. It's just a bigger car everywhere. And that's just been the natural progression of evolutions of makes and models of all generations have just got bigger over time. And whether that's a good thing or not is another debate. In most cases, probably not. But because it's grown and it's got heavier, about 140 kilograms heavier than 197. But to compensate for that extra and additional weight, it's got a more powerful engine. So the base 182, 182 or 180 brake horsepower, has been lifted to 197 to 195 brake horsepower. So about 15 or 16 additional horses in this 197 to compensate for that 140 kilogram weight. There's still 2-litre normally aspirated engines. The gearboxes are different though. My 182 frustratingly has 5-speed only, whereas the 197 is moving to 6-speed. And that may make it more compliant, more useful on a daily, especially on faster A roads or motorways where it's a bit of a bind, a bit of a grind in the 182. Both these come with cut packages, so they've both got slightly lowered, stiffer suspension, anthracite alloys, but again, you can see where the 182 runs on 16s, the 197 has moved up to 17s. Again, that natural progression and that natural evolution there. But the interesting one is on values and prices. And if we ignore this as a liquid yellow, which clearly commands a higher price, and especially because it's the limited edition R27 model, but normal 197s now have come and fallen into the mix of the rising 182 values. So for £5,000, that budget will get you a 182 or a 197. And what I want to do is explore which I think is the best of those two cars. So let's have a quick walk around and see some of the subtle differences across the 182 to 197 range. Headlight wise, the 182 has still got, I still think these are quite unique, triangular, sharp edged headlights compared to the probably softer looking 197. The boot of the 182 comes right down to the front grille, whereas probably, well, not probably, this big area now, I'd imagine was for pedestrian impact. The Euro changes legislation to do with passenger impact, I think. Bonnet opening is further back now. 197 here, this has got the greyed out Renault badge compared to the silver from the 182. I don't know if that is standard actually on the F1, because obviously this the 197's the F1 R27 special edition. Alloy wheels we've talked about, 17s on the 197, just 16s. The stance of the 197 just looks more aggressive. And then the 197's got that front splitter, which my 182 should have, but has actually come off. They get ripped off very easily on the 182s. So if we just take a look now down the side of the 182, here we look at a couple of things. The rear spoiler of the 182, this is the cup spoiler Again, it's very, very subtle with the twin exhaust peering out, sort of cutouts of the bumper. Whereas if we take a look at the 197, because this one comes with the aero pack as well, much more aggressive looking rear spoiler, Renaultsport rear spoiler. Love the look of it. I think it fits in keeping with the car really nicely. And again, the back, it's just more aggressive. This twin exhaust here, this is a aftermarket exhaust. It's a straight piped D-Cat D-Res Scorpion exhaust on this 197, but the way it protrudes out of this rear diffuser, which sort of reminiscent of the Megane diffusers really, which the 182 didn't have as well. Inside, it is a whole world of difference. Let's go to the 182, and this for me is categorically the biggest difference. So seats, these notoriously average type of seats, half leather, half Cantara, but the steering wheel, it's big, it's cumbersome, and the plastics are typical scratchy, sticky plastic. A real letdown. It always was a letdown, the 182, with the 5-speed gearbox. We compare that to a much more grown up, improved interior of the 197. So this comes with the Renaultsport Recaros, just like it's in my Megane. Big thumbs up for those. They offer great amount of support and they are comfortable. Steering wheel's not as cumbersome as the 182s, and the interior, it's definitely clearly a step up from where the 182 was. Plus it's a 6-speed manual as well. So the interior definitely wins it for me. When you walk around this car, I think the back of the car looks particularly nice on the 187. As I say, ignore that it's a liquid yellow because they do fetch a premium. But I think even if my 182 was liquid yellow or the 197 was black, I still think the looks of the 197, other than probably the front quarter, not sure the 197 headlights, that's probably the weak point of the car. Yeah, it's certainly a bigger car, it's a more grown-up car, but that does worry me a little bit. Is that extra weight? It's not just about power, the acceleration. The 197s reportedly are actually a tenth or two quicker to 60 because the gearing in first, second and third is actually shorter geared than the 182s. Even though the BHP per tonne is slightly down on the 182s. So, but it's not just about acceleration. My concern with the weight on the 197 is what's it like under braking, what's it like cornering, and also 182s were hydraulic power assist steering, whereas the 197's moved to electric. So what's that steering like? That used to be that high revving 182, brilliant steering, you could feel everything, you could feel the car move around, the way it used corner so hard. Can the 197 meet what the 182 was so brilliant at? The only way to find out, it's the same day, it's the same weather, let's get these two cars out on the roads, onto some brilliant B roads, and I'm going to tell you what I think is the best 182, 197 if you've got a 5k budget. When you sit in the 197 having been in the 182, the difference is stark. Clearly the seats make a huge difference. One of the biggest issues with the 182 was driving position. This, you sit in it, these seats just offer so much comfort, but they're supportive as well. And the whole dash, don't get me wrong, it's not the best dash you're ever going to see. It's still plastics and it's poor shit really. It's just less shit than the 182s are. So you're not buying it for that, but it's certainly a better place to be from regard the driving position. So let's take it out. Well, 197 is
They're coming at about 1240 kg compared to the 182s about 1100, so 140 kilos heavier. Are you going to feel that? Are you going to feel that in both acceleration, braking, cornering? And that's a bit of a worry, that's a bit of a concern. So we'll just take it down this road here. First of all, you feel better in the 197 because I feel sat in it. It just feels it's a better place to be, for sure. The ride quality isn't as good. The 182 feels more compliant. This is quite a bad potholed road. The 182 definitely is more compliant over these type of roads. This has got the aftermarket exhaust, which the 182 hasn't. That's standard. But the ride, it's okay. It's definitely firmer than the 182s. Second gear, 20 miles an hour here, so holding it second gear, pulling just under 2,500 revs. So get to the 60, accelerate, 3, oh yeah, pulls hard, 5,000, 6, right up into third, oh, popping and banging. Lift off, oh, it is on fire. It doesn't quite kick like the 182 does. It's more linear delivery all the way up to the 7,000 or beyond. Very adjustable by that accelerator. It really is. Oh, and it goes really, really well. If you're looking at a 182 or 197, don't think that these cars are absolutely the same, or because one's a successor to the other. Because actually, they're quite different. Whereas the 182 is a lightweight, chuckable, throwable, little hot hatch, reminiscent of cars from the 80s and 90s. The 197 is an altogether more grown-up car. Probably better in many, many ways, but it's certainly more grown-up, and it covers off all the shortcomings of the 182. It might not have that little kick, that raspy note that's just been blunted a little bit by the 197 because of its weight, but it seems to tick off and beat the 182 in a lot of categories, and it's just a more practical daily user than the 182. I couldn't use a 182 as a daily. Although we've not been on any A roads at all, actually, or motorways this afternoon driving this car, I think that 6th gear is definitely a big bonus. It just makes it more usable, more dailyable, really, on the everyday chores of a daily driver, because it'll just drop the revs, and it should aid MPG as well. Whereas something like the 182, it's definitely a harder car to live with on a daily basis because it's got too many issues. The way it rattles and squeaks and everywhere. And these are only 2 years apart in age, and yet this feels 10 years newer than the 182. It really does. Oh, I love the way that accelerates. Oh, giving it some now. 3rd gear. The popping and banging when you're on song, and that's what that Scorpion exhaust does for you. Let's try it through this left-hander here again. It's great fun, it really is. And for your typical British B road, it's as fast as you really ever want to go, to be truthful. And those little pops and brangs, they all add to the sense of something quite special. Great fun. When you jump in the 182, the first thing that is greeted with you is this, the inside. It's just cheap plastic. It looks something like the 80s and 90s, not the 2000s. And in truth, actually, I mean, the Mark II Clio was a late 90s car, to tell you the truth, but it's, the steering wheel's big and it peels, and the inside's all, it's really, really poor quality. It's a 1 star out of 5 star. And it's renowned for the driving position. The seats are average at best. Nothing like the 197s if you've got the Renaultsport Recaro seats fitted. It was just a world apart, absolute world apart. It feels straight away like it's not, well, there's only 2 years between these cars. Mine's 2005, the 197's 2007. 2 years, it feels closer to 20 than 2. The other thing very evident in the 182 as well is its clutch. It's got a very heavy clutch. And again, it's when you jump between cars, you soon get used to it, the 182, but when you're jumping between cars, the 197 is much more, it's an easy car to drive, actually. Probably because you sit lower, you sit in it rather than sit on it, and say this heavy duty clutch. Gear changes, they're probably comparable, I suppose, but largely both inside, driving position, clutch, etc. The 197's got the 182 linked. The other thing to note is the noise. The 197, other than the Scorpion exhaust, but I'm on about road noise. The 182 is just so much noisier, not in a pleasing way. It's not tyre noise. You can't hear the tyre noise for the squeaks and rattles and shakes and vibrations of a lightweight 182. Yeah, and it's not until you jump from one to the other and back again, and you keep switching between cars, do you see the stark contrast between these two cars. The 197's just a more modern car. It's just a more grown-up car. It's a bigger car. It's a heavier car. But it's a quieter car. It's got a better position. It's got a better interior. All the weak points of the 182, the 197's just covering off. Come out of this village here and go into a national speed, so I'll be able to just open the 182 up. So, second gear, I'll pull 25 miles an hour in second gear, just under 3,000 revs, get to the 60. Oh, that's that instant! 5! Woohoo! Oh, wow, that just goes some. Knock it down there, second gear, this tight little corner, this. That is why I love the 182. It just, that lightness. Yes, it rattles and it shakes and stuff, but by God, that 180 horsepower, so there's just no mass. So the acceleration, the braking, the cornering, it just feels a level up from the 197. Oh God, it's hard to describe. This is what old school hot hatches should feel like. If you can get past that, the way it looks, the size being so small, the rattles, the shakes. I don't know if much of this is coming through on the audio, but it's a rattly, vibrating little car, but it's lightweight. It's almost the 182 strength because it gets the most out of that engine, most out of that chassis. We're going to take a left here and go up the hill, and we'll just stretch the engine, and it's got so much throttle response. It really is. It's alive, the accelerator. So second gear, pulls out there, and then just it's tugging away. The steering feels alive. And it does most of its best work right high up. It's all that top end. It makes it pure. It makes it huge driver engagement, huge involvement. It's that screaming, high revving 5, 6, 7,000. That's where you need the car to be. And it sings, and the steering's tugging and fighting. You can feel everything that the front wheels are doing. The chassis is just so good. Absolute fire rocket. Love it. Brilliant. So what's my summary then of these two cars? The 182 is old school hot hatch, flimsy build, very raw to its nature, but comes alive when you're on it. High in the revs, lightweightness, the way it accelerates corners, it's just addictive, huge fun. The 197 comes from it, a more grown-up car. It covers off, Renaultsport managed to cover off all the negatives with the 182. It looks better, the 197 to me, as long as it's got the aero pack fitted. It's better inside. It's only average, but average is much better than a 182. The driving position's much better if it's got the Renaultsport Recaros fitted. It's got the 6th gear, which gives it more dailyable driving with A roads and motorways, more usability. And it's covered off all those poor parts of the 182 while still giving you probably 95, 96% of what the 182 can. But it just can't quite reach the same levels of pureness that a 182 can. Almost, but not quite. And so I suppose the answer to the question, if you had 5k, what would you buy? 182 or 197? I think it comes down to what you want the car for. If it was going to be a more practicable daily car that gives almost as much, but it's just a more easy car to live with, there is no question the 197 is the better car, no doubt of that. But if you had an hour's playtime down a typical British B road, I'd take the 182, because that old school rawness is something that I miss, and I miss terribly, especially as cars have become more and more modern. And that vibration, those poor negatives with the 182 becomes its enduring feature. I know it's got lots of faults, but on the right road, just nothing can beat a 182. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please thumbs up, subscribe, stay tuned. Another video next week. Thanks for watching.